Well, hey, you guys, how are you? I am super excited about today's chat. We had to reschedule things a little bit because of kind of unforeseen circumstances, but I'm so thankful that Amy and Dyann were flexible and that we are going to get to have a conversation today about digital calming rooms. So I want to be honest, this is an idea that is new to me, something that I've just kind of learned about. And I knew obviously that Amy had a connection with her sister, Dyann. And so I reached out and I'm just looking so forward to talking about what this can look like for every learner. They were sharing with me before we hopped on how this is so beneficial for every learner. And we'll get into what that looks like and the different kids that this would be super beneficial for. But really just, I want you as you watch this to consider every single kid in your classroom and what this might look like for them. So super excited that you guys are here, Amy and Dyann. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell a little bit of your story because I think it's awesome. So I'm going to stop talking and let you guys share and introduce kind of your work and what you do.
All right, I'll go first because I want Dyann to kind of end it with her little story. Not little, it's a pretty big one. My name is Amy Storer, and I am a lead learning guide at my dream company, Fried Tech, here in Conroe, Texas. Before this, I was an instructional coach at a pre-K through fifth grade campus in Montgomery, Texas, as well as a lead tech integration mentor for my district, Montgomery ISD. Love the people that work there. I also have experience as a classroom teacher, mostly third grade and fourth grade math and science, but I am living out my dream today, working alongside all kinds of educators when it comes to meaningful tech integration with my colleagues and friends at Fried Tech.
All right. So first I'm going to say the fact that you, Andy, have a twang in your accent, I feel we're already connected because I have a really, really bad accent because, we're Texans. So I love that I hear that. I heard it on your podcast this morning. Like, oh my gosh, he sounds like me. So it's going to be perfect.
Love that.
My name's Dyann Wilson. I am a middle school counselor in Aldine ISD. I've been a counselor. I think this is my 6th year. I've only been a middle school counselor, so I only know this wonderful age group. I love my job, my team, my kids. This is why I come to work every day. My biggest roles in life is that I'm a mother. I have 2 children. I'm a wife to an amazing husband who is one of my biggest cheerleaders besides my sister. He supports me with all my crazy ideas. We love to camp. We live that RV life. We camp probably once or twice a month. We love hiking. We're big attendees to CrossFit in our hometown of Conroe, and I love Lord of the Rings and Hobbit.
Oh, so I knew she was going to mention that. Nobody watching this.
Everybody should watch Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. So I'm a huge fan.
Please don't say it. Please don't say it.
She did this at a conference that we went to in Galveston, and she's like, pretty much like, where are all my Lord of the Rings and fans, and like crickets. And I was like, why do you do this?
So I'm gonna find one person one day that loves it.
You never know. I say go for it.
I guess a little quick backstory to how a counselor became introduced into tech was because of my twin sister, Amy. We're known as the Tech Care Twins, Tech Care. And we're twins, obviously. But COVID happened a couple years back, and we went remote, and I had no way to reach my families. As counselors, we don't have that kind of platform to use to reach our students and our families and our staff. So we were using Schoology at that time because of COVID. So we started using Wakelet a lot. I just kind of honed in and learned the tool, and I absolutely fell in love with it. That's all we use in our counseling program right now. We still use it to this day. I'm a Wakelet ambassador. I love all things Wakelet. But I think the biggest accomplishment I had through utilizing technology with my school counseling program was that I was inspired to build digital calming rooms. And I love building them for different grade levels. I love building the bones of it, the templates, so that other people can use them. And then stuff is just kind of spiraling from it. So I have like sister projects happening right now that are kind of tied to calming rooms. But we can get into that later in the questions. But I love digital calming rooms. That's one of the things I'm very passionate about.
And she often shares that she truly had to get eager to be uncomfortable and learning about how she could utilize technology as a school counselor, because, and she'll admit to this, she would tell me, I don't have time for that. It doesn't seem like it would fit nicely in my programs. And when the pandemic hit, I think a lot of us were shown the power that tech could provide for us, whether near or far.
Mhm.
And Dyann just embraced it and ran with it. And she's finding ways. She starts with the why, and she looks for ways to support that why. And Wakelet has been that tool for her. And I'm just so proud of her.
Gosh, I love that. First of all, I love y'all's relationship. Just the fact that the whole idea of tech care twins, I think, is awesome. I want to say too, I loved what you shared, Dyann, about how you were able to kind of hone in on a specific tool and really utilize that one tool with purpose. I think that's sometimes what we get caught up in, like the flashy and the cool, and like everybody else is doing it, so I have to be doing it. And I love that you were able to really, like Amy just shared, start with your why. This is what I'm looking to do. And then find a tool like Wakelet that really allowed you to make that possible. So, okay, so for somebody who is kind of new to this idea, AKA myself, tell us what digital calming rooms are. Like, what is their purpose and what exactly are they?
So I'll start. So for me, a lot of times there's confusion to how I would use it in regards to a school counseling program. From my mindset behind a calming room is that it's not a lesson. It's not a guidance lesson I'm going to push out to classes or to students. It's a tool for someone to use to help manage their emotions and their feelings. For example, students who are having emotional distress, or they're stressed out, or they're anxious, that's things that they're having a hard time controlling. If we give them this tool that they can always go back to, that's the one thing they can control. If I go in the tool and I'm like, live animal cams, I know that's going to calm me down. Watching the baby elephants at the Houston Zoo is going to calm me down for sure. I know that if I'm in that moment of stress or high anxiety, I can go to the calming room, which is available to anybody, and just click around and find what calms you down. Rather than, as a teacher, you automatically, sometimes that was me too. You automatically think it's a behavior problem. We don't want to discipline a child for what emotional trauma they're going through at that moment. So if we have this tool in front of us, that is the lesson. But that's how we push it out here, is that it's just an available tool for anybody to use to help manage their emotions.
Man, I love what you said about them having ownership of it. Like, this is about me going through what I'm going through right now and having the ownership and the intentionality to go choose whatever it is that's going to calm me down in this moment, versus somebody telling me what's going to calm me down in this moment. And I know I can think back to my time in the classroom and a couple of students that I had. I was in a gift classroom for my last few. I had a couple of kids who would have outbursts, or just those moments where the anxiety was too much and they needed an opportunity. And what I would have given to have something like this, because I knew how important it was for them to have ownership of that moment and for them to be able to kind of manage that on their own, so that they would have the skills to do so beyond the walls of the classroom. I talk about that all the time. Just, our ultimate goal is for them to be able to utilize what they use beyond the walls of the classroom. And this is a huge part of that. So yeah. Amy, would you add anything to that kind of definition? Or?
Yeah. And I, when she first created it, when she first introduced it to me, she was inspired. And she especially wishes that she could remember the name of the educator. I think it was in California, that shared it on, was it Facebook, Dyann? Or
yeah, Facebook.
Yeah. But Dyann was so inspired by it. It was actually built initially in a Google Sites, and then Dyann then transferred that into a Wakelet. But when she showed it to me, I was like, this could be used for adults as well. At the time, I was an instructional coach in Montgomery, and there were times that I would just have, whether teachers were in my room or it was just me who needed it, because even instructional coaches need some time to de-stress or just relax or kind of find our center, if you will. And so I would put up her calming room, and I would, my choice was typically the zoo or the animal cams, and I would pull up like the coral reef or things like that, and just have it playing in my classroom for me or for when teachers were walking in. But you could kind of see, and it's not a quick fix. That's not the point of these calming rooms. Dyann has a big disclaimer on them that says, that if you have a student that is in serious need of professional assistance when it comes to emotional trauma, then of course you want to reach out to the appropriate people. But I could see some of the tension in even students who walked in, or even teachers, just kind of drop a little bit when they walked in and saw the polar bears at the Houston Zoo, or they heard beautiful, music from a YouTube video that was playing. So like I said, not a quick fix for all, but for some, like Dyann had said, and you had also said, it gives them choice in how they choose to find what they need to support their emotions and to manage those emotions. And I fell in love with it, and I haven't stopped talking about it since. And like you, Andy, I have a student in my head that I can think of right now where my first instinct was sometimes, okay, just sit at your desk for a little bit and just calm down. But maybe he or she didn't need that quiet. They needed to go listen to music or watch some animals play at the zoo. And if I would have had this, I would have used it all the time.
Yeah, that's such a good point about, a lot of times that's us trying to solve it. And when we do that, I did the same thing. Like, hey, just take a few deep breaths. And I'll tell you that as someone who sometimes struggles with a little bit of anxiety, I oftentimes, people will tell me that, like, just take some deep breaths. And for me, that sometimes it works, but there are moments that just doesn't solve the problem. And I'll be completely honest and transparent. I say it on here all the time. I just don't know how else to be, even when I shouldn't share things. But I really love like penguin cams. I don't know what it is about watching penguins. They just make me laugh. So like if I'm a lot of times education right now can get really heavy. And like if I get sucked into a negativity place or like, oh, there's so much being said about this, sometimes I'll just go watch like a penguin cam, and they're hilarious. Like if you've never watched penguins, I think they're the funniest things alive. But just so much fun. And so I totally get it's interesting that you're talking about animal cams, because I totally get that. So now that we kind of have wrapped our minds around what digital calming rooms are, what are some of the things that you put into a digital calming room? And then we'll talk specifically about Wakelet and how that works.
And I kind of want to talk about this in two ways, because I built the calming rooms with the mindset that I think my grade level has, or the mindset that I think elementary or high school has. I had to go reach out to other counselors and ask them, hey, what are the kids into these days? What calms them down? So I built this around, just researching, but it was what I thought the kids needed. So we would add things like art, healthy cooking, silk weave, which is where you can touch your fingers on the screen and you can draw certain things, animal cams, yoga, mindfulness exercises. There's so much. And then from that, recently, like within the last couple of weeks, I'm like, why don't the kids build their own rooms? So we've kind of stretched it to be, his name is Alex Isaacs, I think.
Mr. Isaacs on Twitter, yeah.
And he made a reflection room on a Bitmoji reflection room. I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing if that could be put into a guidance lesson so the kids could build their own reflection room, or I could build one for them, So now we have this other sister project that's the students are not able to build their own reflection room because they are the only ones that know honestly what can calm them down. That's how they take their ownership, is that it has to be meaningful. It has to mean something to them. So I'm like, well, let's just let them choose their own room. So that's literally, I don't even think it's I think it's like a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I think I built it. So it'll be my next lesson for a group I have, for them to build their own reflection. Because the group I have in counseling is mainly gifted kids, one of my groups. And they need some assistance sometimes. So I want them to have that tool at their phone. This is my reflection room. I can keep adding to it. I can always go look at it. So to me, that is, you add what you think you need. You add what you think is calming for me, but then I think the kids need to do that as well for themselves. So
I love that you got kids involved, that you're getting kids involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do too. And that, the social emotional conversation is so big right now, really, with all of our learners. And when we think about the role that this could play, it really is about self-awareness and self-management, right? I'm aware enough, number one, right now, that I need a calming room. And number two, I'm learning how to manage that myself instead of me having somebody manage that for me. So, man, it's so cool. Okay. So I can't wait to hear more about this. Do you guys want to share an example or talk about Wakelet and what this can look like specifically? I know some of the people that are watching, or some people that will watch this later, will probably be asking themselves like, okay, if I was going to put this into practice, what would it look like? How would I move forward with this if I wanted to do so today or tomorrow?
Okay.
Yes, we
can show, Amy can talk about Wakelet, but for sure, all the templates that I have, they're bones. So, and if they go into and we'll show later, if they go into my profile, they can take the template and they can just build it as their own, or they can use what I have, but I have everything already made for them. So, and that's just awesome. And Wakelet is, the good thing about Wakelet is that you can edit and add whenever. You don't have to keep
Yep.
what I put. I just made the template for them because I know time is like precious to everybody right now.
Yeah.
So if I can give that time back, that's what I want to do for any educator, for sure.
I love that. Real quick, before we jump into actually sharing the screen and you talking about these, I want to say that one of the things that I always say is that anytime we're considering implementing anything, whether it be digital calming rooms, Genius Hour, any technology tool, as we as educators and even as administrators have to really consider, is this manageable and is it meaningful, right? Is it manageable for the educator? Is it meaningful for the learner? And if it's both of those things, then we have a much better chance of it being sustainable. And so I love, Dyann, that you were saying that you've already created the bones of this, because that makes it so much more manageable for an educator than to have to go in and kind of start it from scratch. So Amy, are you ready for me to share the screen or?
Yeah, sure. I'm ready.
Perfect. Okay. All right, here we go. So cool.
All right. So this is, and I can share the link to this with Andy so she can post it where it's needed. But this is Dyann's Wakelet profile. Wakelet, we could spend all day talking about it. But I do encourage you to look into it. But the good thing is, like they said, Dyann has created the bare bones for you to then add and edit and change to fit your needs. But it is an absolutely free curation tool with all the things. You can add all kinds of things to it. So this is her profile. If you go to her profile, and that's her profile name, at Tech Care Twins, you'll be able to see all of the different collections that she's created in Wakelet. And the majority of her collections are available for you to copy and make your own. So for example, if you click on Calming Room, you'll be taken to her Calming Room section. This is a brand new one she's working on right now, but you'll be able to see some templates. This is elementary, middle, high school. This happens to be her school's Calming Room. And then she has another one that she also worked on as well. So you can see some examples. I mean, you want to do this one, Dyann, for an example?
You can go to Teague.
Teague one? Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't a kick about pineapples at the time. You can absolutely change the pictures.
And
we all
side
have
note,
those moments. Like you look back on something and you're like, okay, obviously I had a thing there.
And side note, just to give a shout out to our favorite creation tool to make these graphics is Canva. And if you are a Canva user, make sure you're using Canva for education, because that means you get it for absolutely free. We love Canva.
Yes.
I do too. I'm right there with you. I don't know if I could do my job without it, honestly. So.
All right, it's slowly loading, but what you'll notice here is Dyann decided to use the columns.
Not in this one.
Board. Yeah, she did mood board. Now, her and I differ when it comes to the look of the calming rooms. I like to have mine in categories. Like here's music, here's YouTube, here's color. And she has one like that. She has that. But she decided to make one that was just like almost like a Pinterest board of all the things her students could click on, go to, and interact with. Okay, so hers is just, it looks more like this. The layout she chose to use is what's called mood board. There's 5 different layouts you can choose from in Wakelet, but we do like currently to use the column view, and I'll show you that in a template. The column view is great.
Go to the elementary one. That's column.
It's just taking its time. There it goes.
It's just going to be slow.
My computer's like, no, it's 9:18. That's not happening.
I had my coffee yet. Yeah.
All right. So, it went way back. While this is pulling up, though, another thing that we'll share with Andy is also, this is the Wakelet template library, which is full of templates from all kinds of community members, including Wakelet employees they're literally the best. But if you come to from our community, you can actually see that they've used and they have Dyann's counseling templates and her calming room templates are in their template library, which is pretty awesome. I was sharing with Andy earlier, Dyann really is a pioneer. In my head and in my heart, I firmly believe it when it comes to a counselor really looking for ways to leverage technology to support what she does as a school counselor. So check out those templates. There's lots of great templates. It is just not going to do it. Let's refresh. Have you refreshed yet? Unplug.
While you do that, Dyann, I just think it's so cool that as a counselor, you've really thought through, what does this look like for what I do at the school district or on the campus. I think that that's so important. And so often it's so easy to fall into, well, a teacher can use that in their classroom, but my job is different, or I do something different. And so the more we can really look into, I think kind of what you led off with, what is it that I do? Why do I need a solution, a technology solution? And then how can I implement this to help learners? I think that's huge. And I love that you're a pioneer in this, because I think it gives a voice to how technology is not just something that we use to check off a box, but that it really is something that can make things more manageable and can give our learners some of the pieces that for so long have been missing just because we didn't have the access that we needed to make it a reality.
Yeah. And this year's been very, very difficult for not just school counselors, but educators in general. So to be transparent, there's a lot of things I had to pull back from that I was pushing out for 2 years, during COVID, especially when we were remote, because I just felt like it was too much. The kids are stressed, the educators are stressed. So I tried to just minimize some things. And I started focusing on what I could do within my role as a school counselor, more than just pushing out, like we used to do Take Care Tuesdays on Wakelet, which is just for staff. I pulled that back. I did something else that was a little bit more, it's just a flyer now in the copier room that my sister inspired me to do. So like I've learned that I have to just kind of, be in the environment I'm in, be present, listen, hold space for others. And if that's just the calming rooms right now, then it's just the calming rooms, whatever I can do to support them. But I definitely had to pull back, because this year, I know in my role, we haven't done one guidance lesson this year, and that's not good. And that's part of my role as a counselor, is to do my lessons with my kids. And that's been very, very difficult to do this year. That's another podcast, but
another issue. So, I think a lot of counselors would agree with you that that's where a lot of people are right now. It's just, but I love what you said about being able to pull back and know. And I think my favorite thing was that you said just listening. That is something that I think we're all getting a little better at, is like, it's so easy to want to say, why are you not using this? Or why are you not doing this? So many times I'm like, there's a solution for that. Like, but it's so important to listen and know whether they're ready for that. Because I think about myself sometimes in the classroom, and we would have a speaker come and I'd be like, do they even know what it's like to be in the classroom? Because I can't add anything else to the plate. But when you look at it from this perspective, and this is not really one more thing, something like this, because of the tools that you've created, is super manageable, super meaningful. I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Amy, were you going to say something? I think I cut you off. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Oh, no. All good.
Okay. All right. Well, let's keep going. Did it refresh? Are we good?
Let's hope. Dyann, did you say elementary calming room?
Yeah, you do elementary.
Okay. So once again, these are templates. Now, I wish we could get into like a full training of Wakelet. We would thoroughly enjoy that, but that's not what we're here for. We're here just to show you and inspire you. But we will, I can share some links with Andy too, to share with like a Wakelet in 10 minutes. But I promise you, once you get in, it's super user-friendly. And Dyann and I, we have met with other counselors and educators before. If you need some, personalized assistance, just let us know and we can connect somehow. But this is the elementary one. Fingers crossed. And this one's going to be utilizing the column view, which, right, Dyann?
Yes.
Okay. So like I said, when you are building a Wakelet collection, there's 5 different views that are little, the way that it looks that you can choose from. There's like mood, column, media. It just really depends on your purpose. You choose whichever layout looks best for the reason why you're creating the collection. For this one being a calming room, it just made sense to have sections like the Google site was that we initially started with, had tabs you could click on to go to the different pieces. But this, once it loads, imagine beautiful columns popping up right here.
So I'll just close our eyes and think about what it would look like.
This column says coloring books, and beneath it.
So funny.
Anyway, look, page unresponsive. Okay, well, we're gonna. Oh, maybe it's coming. But we'll share some links to this. But you see these 3 dots right here. I saw this on Facebook recently, or maybe it was Twitter, that a friend couldn't remember what they were called, and so they decided to start calling them drama dots. And so that's now what I call them. These are called drama dots.
I saw that too. I was like, that's perfect. Love it.
So when you get to any of Diane's collections, click on these 3 dots here, the drama dots, and click copy collection. When you do that, go back into your you can just click this Wakelet homepage button and it will take you back to like your landing page and you'll see this collection there. It will always give credit back to Diane because that's good digital citizenship, but then you can take anything within her collection and edit it and make it whatever you would like. So this is the template for elementary school. This part you can eventually delete. This is just resources that Diane's provided to you. So the cover image you saw at the top, I'm afraid to scroll. The cover image you saw at the top with the pineapples. Oh gosh, there it is. She made that in Canva. You can click where it says here and you can actually go, you can grab a template to it and you can edit that image if you wanted to, but delete it when you're done because you won't need it after that. Another thing that we always love to point out when you're using something like Wakelet, if you're including text into your calming room, or maybe you decide to use it for a newsletter, Microsoft's Immersive Reader is built in to this platform, which means it will read text aloud. And it will also read it in a different language. It will translate it into a different language. It's great for learners with reading difficulties. You can add colored overlays. There's a picture dictionary. It's just a great accessibility tool that's built right in to this free tool. So here is what it looks like. So she's got different columns, sounds and music. She's included quite a bit. But when you're in the Wakelet itself, like I'm looking at hers, but if I was editing this, you would see a plus sign right here. When you click that plus sign, you can add things like text, YouTube videos, links, files from your Google or Microsoft OneDrive, PDFs, tweets, Flipgrid videos, you name it. The different assets you can add. It's a pretty great library of things you can choose from. But she just kept adding links below these columns to build her template, and then it's yours to use if you choose to do so.
I love that. So the columns are specific, just like I didn't look at the titles of the columns. So they're just categories of the different types of columns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And you can scroll all the way across. There's several columns. I would venture to say there's probably, I don't know, less than 20, but there's a lot of columns of different topics that you can go to, add to, take away from.
Yeah, it goes all the way across from left to right. I'm just so afraid to start scrolling. And then it goes from top to bottom as well. But but you can add any of these columns can change up here. You can add and edit those as well. But there's you can see the bar down here. It goes over.
I love that because it's so about choice. And another, when we think about social emotional learning, just another one of those pieces is responsible decision making. And this is a form of that. Like I'm deciding what I need in this moment. And I think this checks so many boxes as far as learners being given a little bit of control back and us knowing when it's important for them to take control and when it's important for us to have a little bit of that control. I think this is a really simple way to make that a reality. And I say simple, but I also think it's a really important way to make that a reality.
Yeah, definitely.
I think all students right now, regular ed, SPED, gifted students, any kid under any umbrella right now is going under some kind of educational stress, educational fatigue, mental fatigue. So I think the biggest thing, and I think it might have been in your podcast this morning, I heard someone say this, or you said it, or how important it is, you might have just said it, or how important it is for the kids to have ownership, we as adults need to normalize that it's okay to not be okay. That, in specific to just gifted students, the 3 Ps, like the guy you had on your podcast this morning, I forgot his name. I'm sorry.
Brian Housen. No, you're good.
Yes.
Brian.
Him talking about the 3 Ps. Those are so important. The procrastinator,
I knew perfectionism.
Yes, perfectionist.
I can't remember what the third one was just because we're on the spot, but I'll think
They're
about
all tied to it, though. They're all tied to perfectionism. So I just think it's so important to know that these kids, if we can give them something that they can take ownership in, that they can own for themselves, that they can use to their advantage, that to show them that it's okay to be stressed out and have anxiety. It's okay to not make 100. It's okay to have a 97, like things like that. That's why I think it's important to use these calming rooms, but then not just that. If you decide to do reflection rooms where the students have their own, that just builds into a brand new world for them, for any student.
Yeah, and it really is. I love that. And Lane is actually saying in the chat that any kid, any label, kids and adults alone are struggling. Like everybody's struggling on some level right now. And look, even if the pandemic hadn't happened, it's so funny that we're like, well, look, I needed a calming room before the pandemic. I mean, let's be honest. It's not just that. There's just a lot of other things going on as well. So even when we're beyond, and I don't know if we'll ever be beyond it, but once we get back to a place where, and I'm definitely not going to use the word normal because I hope we don't go back to normal. But once we get to a place where there is, we're kind of moving beyond these things. I think calming rooms will be so important moving forward just because of the day-to-day things that kids experience. And I do a lot of work with gifted education and gifted learners. And like Brian was sharing, so often it just becomes too much. It's too heavy, the unrealistic expectations that we put on them. And they just need a break from the feeling of, I have to make a 100 on this test.
Right.
Or I'm anxious about this test because whatever. And then you think about struggling learners. And even though they might not have the same worry or fear as a gifted learner, sometimes they do. Those groups are a lot more alike than I think we sometimes realize. But even if it's a different fear or a different worry, that anxiety still exists. And so I just think it's such a good point that it's for every learner.
Yeah, I agree.
I was looking at my question because I know there was something else that I wanted to be sure. So if a teacher was going to implement this tomorrow, you would say that the first step would be to probably visit your resources, get access to those to get ideas or to utilize those templates to move forward, right? Is that kind of, if you were going to give them some steps?
Yeah, definitely. I would go to, you could go to Wakelet. Like I'm not going to do it because I'm afraid I've made my computer angry, but you can come up here to where it says search and you could actually just type in Diane's name. You could type in my name and you could go to different profiles. And as long as they're available for you to use, you can actually, like I said, click those drama dots and click copy collection. And it goes into what you're looking at right now is the landing page of your account. One of the first ones that I used that really got me started in Wakelet was Erin Flanagan.
Yeah.
And she has beautiful newsletter templates, like absolutely beautiful. All of the different pieces are in it, like where you put your announcements, where you put your subject area, different things. Everything's in it. And so she's where I started. And then it kind of evolved into me starting to build them from scratch. But start with, like Diane, start with something where someone's got something created for you so you can at least get used to the tool, get familiar with it, and maybe eventually you'll start making and creating some on your own. So yeah, seek out Diane, go to Wakelet's template library. If there's other people besides counselors tuning in today, any educator, go to the template library and check out their side menu here, and you can see all these different templates, including subplans. There are station rotation ideas, exit tickets, things for librarians. Like there's all kinds of different templates that you can at least get some support in as you're a beginner when it comes to Wakelet. But it's so user friendly. I bet in no time you're going to be building them all the time on your own. So, but start with Diane and then go from there for sure.
Yeah, I want to say too, I just want to add something because I just reflected on this. When I initially started, my sister built my Wakelets for me. And so
it's true.
She did. She would build them for me in the beginning, and then I would add what I wanted to add. And then eventually she's just like, I
got to let you fly, baby bird.
But I think it's important to have that person to lean on. So lean on me. If you are, I was very nervous about this tool, any tool as a counselor or educator. So lean on me. I will help you one-on-one, whatever you need. But that's why I built these bones, the templates, because I know how difficult it was for me in the beginning because of time and all the different hats we wear in education. I knew I wouldn't have time. And so luckily I had my sister to lean on. So that's what I want to be to you, is to just lean on me and I will help you master that tool. I almost used a Gandalf quote, but I didn't, Amy. I didn't do it.
You should be proud.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, and I think that's so important right now is to know that there are, I feel like that about Genius Hour. Like I've already gone through the hard part of it. And so I think that you're saying the same thing. Like I've gone through this, figured out some of the obstacles and maybe not have figured them all out, but have figured out enough to know how to move forward with this. And so that idea of finding an idea or something that you want to put into practice, and then finding the person that has done it, has created resources for that, I think that's so important, and not reinventing the wheel right now. Number one, because teachers don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
And number two, there would be no reason to do that. We lost Amy. I think she's.
I know. She just, let me text her back. She thinks it stopped.
So as you text Amy and we kind of, I want to make sure that as we close this out, we give teachers, I know some people may be asking this question. So Wakelet and the resources that you shared, all of that is 100% free, right?
Yes.
Wakelet is a free tool. Okay.
Yes. They have vowed to always be free. That was my buy-in at first because I pay for, I paid for Canva initially before I knew it was for educators. And, that was like $12 a month, which is okay because I love it. But I think it's important that we support educators right now. So they have vowed to never charge for this tool ever.
I love that. Yeah. So 100% free, and all of your resources are free. They just have to be willing to go find them and utilize them. I think too, one of the last questions that I would ask is that when you think about, is there anything that you would add as far as social emotional learning goes as a counselor? I think it's so cool to have your perspective. As a counselor, I know that I talked a little bit about social emotional learning, and I know that's a question that a lot of educators have right now is like, how do I teach the content that I need to teach and deliver the things I need to deliver while still making social emotional learning a priority? And so where do digital calming rooms come into that area and kind of help teachers make that a reality, I guess?
Okay. So we just had a restorative circle on our campus the other day. It was great. But there you are.
She's back.
I really made my computer angry.
Like, I'm done, ma'am.
I mean, y'all just froze and it was like, we're done.
But I think, you always, as any educator, that's any realm of education, you chose this job because and with the mindset of it's student-centered. You have to be student-centered all the time. Academics play a huge part, obviously. We can't stop doing academics. But for me and from what I've seen, especially the last 2 years of having these huge gaps, not just in education, but gaps in social time with each other, gaps in emotional, it's so important to build those connections and relationships again. There's a graphic going around showing you about the different grade levels where they were at 2 years ago. Like it's scary when you think about how much time we lost with our kids. And I see the effects of that on my campus. So I know that others do as well. But educators aren't, they didn't go to school to be a school counselor. They shouldn't push out lessons like that. But, but I think it's important to have these tools like a calming room. Or small little SDL videos to show your class in the beginning of class, but I think it's important to use this to the best of your ability to show kids, hey, this morning for the first 5 minutes, we're going to take a reset. Click on this link, search around, find something, or do a mindfulness meditation, a breathing exercise, anything to get the kids out of the mindset of where they came in from home. We don't know where our kids are coming from, obviously. And so, and I could tell you a million heartbreaking stories of where our kids do come from, but it's not going to do anything. I just think it's important to, as educators, to not judge, to not assume, to be that person that holds the space for our students. That is what we're supposed to be doing, because if we can't get that right, then the academics aren't going to fall into place.
Oh, so true. So good. So good. I think so often we can fall into wanting to say something like, well, that should be happening at home. And my response to that is always 100% it should. I couldn't agree with that more. But the reality is it's not always happening at home. And so we have to find ways that are, like we talked about earlier, manageable and meaningful. It's totally got to be that. But we have to find ways to fill those gaps. Otherwise, we're going to have a generation of learners who are going to struggle beyond the walls of the classroom because of what we've experienced. And I love what you just said. It's very, very cool. Amy, would you add anything? We were talking about just social emotional learning and how important that is to weave in, not to add to the teacher's plate. Yeah. But I love what Dyann said. The reality is if we don't make that a priority on some level, the academics are not going to come.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll come from it from the angle of an instructional coach. And it wasn't really until I became a coach, and even especially when the pandemic hit, that I truly understood the importance of really fostering a climate within your campus that provides teachers, students, family members with the tools and utilities and things that they need to take care of themselves. And I always say this, self-care is so personal. Like the way that you self-care as an adult, the way that you self-care as a child, children, of course, are going to need some tools to get started. But the older they get, like Diane's giving her students those opportunities to make their own reflection spaces. But from the lens of an instructional coach, when it comes to adult learners, you may be able to find tips and tricks in blogs, books, things that can help support you and find your self-care, but it really is personal to you. My sister likes to go camping. I do not. It is not my self-care journey. My self-care journey is reading books that I enjoy. It's listening to hard rock music. Some people may like to sew or go for a jog. It's just, we have to keep in mind that self-care is so personal that it's important for us to provide others with tools they may need to lean on, but also allow them to have the freedom to know what their self-care options are, to know what they can choose from and what works best for them. Because like I said, it's self-care is so personal. And I think sometimes I did this as an instructional coach. I would push out things like, here are the things to do to self-care. And some of those things may have not applied to an educator on my campus, lose weight, drink more water, things like these that are actually harmful to others and not so much self-care. So I think just remembering that self-care is a personal journey is very crucial, whether you're an adult, a student, or even a family member.
Oh man, just that statement in of itself, self-care is personal. And I think that so many posts that I'm seeing right now from educators or even those of us that advocate for educators and are as a digital innovation specialist, I think that's a great way to sum it up, Amy. And I think that that's what people are missing as far as self-care goes. We say that all the time, like, well, teachers should practice self-care. Yeah. Well, here's what, and we're doing like
it's that easy.
Right. Like if I could take care of myself that easily, I'd have been doing it for 45 years. But here we are. And so I think that I was going to just say, like, a lot of the things schools are doing right now, like having a training on a self-care and expecting teachers to be able to do that, or those are not, everybody's doing that with the best of intentions.
Absolutely.
But I think what you just shared, that idea of self-care is personal, is something we need to remember. So if we can pull away from telling people how to care for themselves, or if we can more understand that as a community, we need to be taking care of them and understand that it's personal for them to practice self-care, I think is...
you look at the word self-care, it's care of one's self. So like it's my self-care. And like I said, it looks different for everybody. And you can share, like Diane and I both do, I did, and Diane's doing now, like a copier PD. It's similar to potty PD that you hang up next to a copy machine versus in a bathroom. And you would put things like, here's some self-care tips. That's totally fine.
Right.
But it's not, we just have to be mindful of the fact that not everything that we share is considered self-care for everybody.
Yeah,
I think that's it. I think it's gosh, I can use self-care tips because I don't always and I can take from that, but I think when we give the advice, and then if they're frustrated or if we're like, well, if you were taking care of yourself, it doesn't really always work that way. But I love what you pointed out about it's good to give tips. It's good to give ideas for that, but to understand that it's personal is really important as well. And to let them have the time and the resources to be able to take care of themselves is the key, I think. So I love that. Such good stuff. Okay. Well, we're getting to the end of our time, and I just want to ask first of all, I want to ask if you have any final words, and then I want to make sure that you let people know how they can connect with you beyond this experience if they want to learn more about digital calming rooms or pick your brain on how else they could use Wakelet.
Last word. So I think I always end with this, which has been my word for 3 years, I think, which is, get uncomfortable. I personally, I'm not saying that everyone should get uncomfortable to make progress, but I have my profession and my personal life have changed dramatically since getting out of that box of what I thought a normal counseling program was. And so I just urge you to take those risks and don't look back, no regret. Just, use me again, use me. That's the word. That's what I'm ending with. Use me.
Yeah, but this was so enjoyable, Andy. Thank you. Diane and I love when we get to share and talk about this, and we love when we get to work alongside educators when it comes to, things like calming rooms and hopefully soon reflection rooms. But yeah, like Diane said, she didn't want to. She fought it. but what's come from those steps that she took has really added to her growth as a school counselor. And I hope she'll share an accomplishment that she just got recently before we end. But a lot of things that have happened lately for Dyann, for us as, as not only twin sisters, but as the Tech Care twins is firmly rooted in the fact that she took a chance. She took a chance on a piece of technology that has just changed and transformed the way that she reaches her students, whether they're in school or out of school. So baby steps, lean on Dyann, lean on us, reach out to us. I will definitely share our Twitter info and our Gmail with Annie to share, but I am Tech Amy S on Twitter, TECHAMYS. And then my sister is, well, you can see it on the screen. She's TMS_counselor.
Yes.
But do connect with us on Twitter. We love to connect with others on Twitter. And yeah, and I'm going to let Dyann share something that she just found out recently.
Yes.
Well, it's just very small. There's an organization in Texas called Texas School Counseling Association. And I was recently notified that I got Middle School Counselor of the Year. So I'm blessed. I'm honored. So
yeah.
A lot of times as an educator, we don't know or see the impact that we're doing or the worth that we have sometimes, because we feel like a failure some days and sometimes we don't. So just to get that was just, I'm honored and humbled. And I get to go next week with my family. No, not next week. Valentine's Day week. And my sister gets to go too. We're going to the conference to get presented with the awards. So it's pretty exciting.
I'm excited. Yeah.
So cool. A lot of conferences coming up right now. A lot of things I know on y'all's calendar, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon at TCEA. I don't know.
Yes.
Well, we're both going to be there. Yeah.
I'll only be there on Monday, but I'm definitely, you guys are definitely on my list to make sure that I run into you and get to say hi in person, because I haven't seen you, Amy, in forever, and Dyann.
I know.
Face to face.
No.
So I will definitely find you guys. But man, I just want to say how much I appreciate this conversation, and not only this conversation, but how much I appreciate the work that you guys are doing to move things forward, and to have the conversations about, like we just had, about self-care and about our learners having ownership of how they take care of themselves, and even thinking about, I think we kind of hit on this, but even creating digital calming rooms for teachers and what that looks like. So I think this is really exciting. I think you're definitely a pioneer in this, Dyann and Amy. I just appreciate your approach to Wakelet as well, and all the different ways that we can use that as educators. So whether you want to check out Wakelet or you want to know more about digital calming rooms, these are your people, right? This is who you want to reach out to. So I will be sharing this out as a podcast. If you want to share it with friends, it'll also be here on Facebook. If you enjoyed what we talked about, or this is something that you feel like might be something you could implement on your campus or district, share so that other teachers can hear this and kind of dive into this idea. So thank you guys so much again for the work that you do. It's appreciated. It definitely does not go unnoticed. And I appreciate y'all making time this morning to be here.
Thank you. We enjoyed it.
Okay. Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.